What if you had the opportunity to stand among thousands of people on a quiet mountainside and hear the voice of Jesus with your own ears? Imagine leaving your home before sunrise, walking for miles over dusty roads, not because someone forced you to come, but because hope itself was waiting on the mountain. What if, in just one morning, everything you believed about God, greatness, forgiveness, and life itself was completely transformed? This wasn't just another sermon. It wasn't a speech given to kings inside a palace or to scholars in a grand temple. It was spoken on an ordinary hillside, to ordinary people, by the Son of God. These words would outlive every empire, survive every generation, and continue changing hearts more than 2,000 years later. Today, journey back to the hills overlooking the Sea of Galilee, where heaven seemed to touch the earth, and discover why millions still call it the greatest sermon ever preached. Scene 1. The mountain, where heaven touched earth. The first light of dawn slowly stretched across the hills of Galilee, painting the eastern sky with brilliant shades of crimson, gold, and soft blue. The cool morning air carried the fragrance of wildflowers, olive trees, and freshly turned soil. Birds welcomed the new day with joyful songs, while the calm waters of the Sea of Galilee shimmered in the distance like polished glass beneath the rising sun. The villages surrounding the lake slowly came to life. Doors opened, small fires were lit for breakfast. Children rubbed the sleep from their eyes. Fishermen returned from a long night upon the water. But on this particular morning, something was different. Instead of preparing for another ordinary day, entire families began leaving their homes. Mothers carried infants wrapped in linen cloth. Fathers helped elderly parents walk the rocky paths with wooden staffs. Children hurried ahead with excitement, laughing as they ran between the olive groves. Some carried baskets filled with bread, dried fish, and fresh figs. Others brought water for the long journey. No one wanted to arrive late. News had spread quickly across Galilee. Jesus of Nazareth was teaching once again. His reputation had traveled farther than the roads themselves. People spoke of blind men who now saw the sunrise. They whispered about lepers whose scarred skin had become whole. They told stories of the lame who danced with joy after years of suffering. Some claimed they had watched demons flee at the sound of his voice. Others said they had never heard anyone explain the scriptures with such authority and compassion. Every village had a story. Every traveler carried another testimony. Some came seeking healing. Some came searching for answers. Some simply wanted to see for themselves if the stories were true. No royal messenger had announced his arrival. No palace had opened its gates. No wealthy ruler had organized the gathering. Yet thousands came anyway, because there was something about Jesus that no one could fully explain. He welcomed the forgotten. He touched those everyone else avoided. He spoke with authority, yet never with arrogance. His words carried both truth and compassion. Even his silence seemed to bring peace. As the crowd gathered near the hillside overlooking the Sea of Galilee, people searched for places to sit among the green grass and scattered stones. Shepherds stood quietly near their sheep, keeping watch while listening from a distance. Farmers rested beside their tools. Merchants forgot about business. Even Roman soldiers observed from afar, curious about the teacher who gathered crowds without raising an army. Among those arriving were the 12 disciples. Peter walked with determined confidence, his eyes never far from Jesus. Andrew greeted newcomers with a welcoming smile, always eager to bring others closer to the Master. James and John once known for their fiery tempers, were slowly learning gentleness under Christ's guidance. Matthew, who had once collected taxes for Rome, now stood among the followers of the very one who had transformed his life. Each disciple had witnessed miracles beyond imagination, yet something in the air told them this day would be different. This would not be remembered because of another miracle. It would be remembered because of the words that heaven was about to speak. Slowly, Jesus began walking up the gentle slope of the mountain. Almost instantly, conversations faded. The laughter of children softened. The rustling crowd became still. Thousands of eyes followed him. He reached a quiet place overlooking the Sea of Galilee. From there, he could see every face: the joyful, the weary, the sick, the hopeful, the doubtful, the broken. No one was invisible to him. Jesus didn't merely see a crowd. He saw individual lives. He knew the widow grieving her husband. He knew the fisherman struggling to feed his family. He knew the child afraid of tomorrow. He knew the secret sins hidden behind smiling faces. He understood every burden before anyone spoke a single word. Then, in the tradition of Jewish rabbis, Jesus sat down. His disciples gathered close around him. The people leaned forward with eager anticipation. The mountain became a classroom. The sky became its ceiling. The Creator was about to teach his creation. The silence was almost sacred. Then Jesus opened his mouth and spoke words unlike anything the world had ever heard. "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven." A ripple of surprise passed through the crowd. The religious leaders often praised the wealthy, the influential, and those admired by society. But Jesus began with the humble. He revealed that the kingdom of God belongs not to those who believe they have everything, but to those who recognize they need him. True spiritual riches begin with humility. He continued, "Blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted." Many lowered their heads. Some had recently buried loved ones. Others carried grief no one else could see. Years of disappointment, loneliness, regret. Jesus reminded them that God never ignores broken hearts. Every tear matters. Every prayer is heard. Every sorrow is known by the Father. Hope quietly began replacing despair. Then Jesus said, "Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth." The Roman Empire celebrated power through conquest. The world admired those who ruled by force. But Jesus revealed a different kind of strength. Meekness was not weakness. It was strength surrendered to God. The ability to remain gentle, even when revenge seemed justified. The courage to trust God instead of taking justice into one's own hands. Such people, Jesus said, would inherit far more than earthly kingdoms. As the morning sun climbed higher above Galilee, its golden light covered the hillside. Yet no one noticed the passing time. No one wanted to leave. Every sentence seemed to carry the very heartbeat of heaven. Jesus continued, "Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they shall be filled." Everyone understood physical hunger. Many listening had experienced it. But Jesus spoke of a deeper hunger, a longing for truth, a desire to know God, a heart desperate to live according to his will. And Jesus promised that those who seek God with all their hearts will never seek in vain. God himself would satisfy their deepest longing. The hillside remained completely silent. Even those standing far away strained to hear every word carried by the breeze. Then Jesus spoke again. "Blessed are the merciful, for they shall receive mercy." The people knew justice. Rome enforced justice with swords. Religious leaders often demanded strict judgment. But mercy was different. Mercy chooses forgiveness over revenge, compassion over condemnation, grace over bitterness. Jesus wasn't merely describing God's character, he was inviting his followers to reflect it. Then came another astonishing promise. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Many religious teachers focused on appearances, their robes, their ceremonies, their public prayers, but Jesus looked beyond outward religion. God desired transformed hearts, hearts filled with sincerity, hearts devoted to truth, hearts that loved him above everything else. As a gentle breeze moved through the tall grass, Jesus declared, "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called children of God." In a land divided by political oppression, religious conflict, and national frustration, these words challenged every listener. True greatness was not found in creating conflict. It was found in bringing peace, healing broken relationships, restoring hope, building bridges where others built walls. Finally, Jesus spoke words that carried both warning and encouragement. Blessed are those who are persecuted because of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Following God would not always lead to comfort. There would be rejection, misunderstanding, hardship. Yet Jesus promised that faithfulness would never go unnoticed by heaven. The disciples looked quietly at one another. They could not yet imagine how these words would shape the rest of their lives. Years later, they would remember this very morning while standing before kings, enduring prison, and proclaiming the gospel despite persecution. But on this mountainside, they simply listened, captivated, changed. The people had come expecting another teacher. Instead, they encountered the King of Heaven. And this, the morning sun, had now climbed higher above the hills of Galilee, bathing the mountainside in a warm, golden glow. What had begun as the cool freshness of dawn had slowly given way to the gentle warmth of a new day. Yet not a single person seemed eager to leave. Hours had passed, but no one complained of the heat. No one worried about unfinished work waiting at home. No one asked how much longer Jesus would speak. It was as though time itself had slowed on that mountainside. The people remained completely captivated. Children rested quietly beside their parents, no longer chasing one another through the grass. Elderly men leaned upon smooth stones, listening with careful attention. Fishermen who had spent the entire night casting their nets now forgot their weariness. Even merchants, accustomed to thinking about business and profit, found themselves hanging on every word. The disciples sat close to Jesus. Although they had followed him for many months, every lesson seemed to reveal another glimpse of God's heart. They realized that they were not simply learning new teachings. They were witnessing heaven's wisdom unfold before their very eyes. Jesus allowed a brief silence to settle over the crowd. Sometimes, silence can speak as powerfully as words. The gentle breeze swept across the hillside, causing the tall grass to sway like waves upon the sea below. In the distance, the waters of Galilee sparkled beneath the morning sun, reflecting the beauty of God's creation. Then Jesus looked across the thousands gathered before him. His eyes rested upon ordinary people, fishermen with rough, weathered hands, farmers whose clothes still carried the dust of the fields, carpenters whose strength came from years of honest labor, widows who quietly carried the pain of loneliness, children whose innocent eyes reflected wonder, men and women who believed they had little importance in the eyes of the world. Yet Jesus saw something entirely different. He saw people whom God intended to change the world. A gentle smile crossed his face as he spoke once more. "You are the salt of the earth." The people immediately understood his comparison. Salt was one of the most valuable resources in everyday life. Without it, fish spoiled quickly beneath the hot Middle Eastern sun. Meat could not be preserved. Food lost both its flavor and its usefulness. Salt protected what was good from decay. It preserved life. It added value. Every family depended upon it. Some even knew that Roman soldiers were sometimes connected with salt in their compensation, a reminder of just how precious it was. Jesus wasn't simply speaking about seasoning food. He was speaking about his followers. He was telling ordinary people that their lives carried extraordinary purpose. They were called to preserve goodness in a world increasingly consumed by selfishness and corruption. To remain honest when dishonesty became common. To choose forgiveness when revenge seemed easier. To remain faithful when everyone else compromised. Their influence would not come through political power or military strength. It would come through lives transformed by God's love. Then Jesus' expression became more serious. But if the salt loses its saltiness, how can it be made salty again? The crowd listened carefully. Everyone knew that salt, without its preserving qualities, became worthless. It could no longer accomplish the very purpose for which it existed. The lesson reached far beyond salt itself. A believer who abandons truth loses the influence God intended. Faith without obedience becomes little more than empty words. Jesus wasn't condemning his listeners. He was calling them to remain faithful, to guard the gift God had entrusted to them. After another thoughtful pause, Jesus slowly lifted his eyes toward the brilliant blue sky stretching above the Sea of Galilee. Then he spoke words that would echo through history. "You are the light of the world." Several children smiled as they looked toward one another. They understood light. Every evening, when darkness covered Galilee, families lit small oil lamps inside their homes. Even the tiniest flame could chase away the darkness from an entire room. Light brought safety. Light brought comfort. Light allowed people to find their way. Jesus continued, "A city set on a hill cannot be hidden." Many in the crowd instinctively glanced toward distant villages, resting upon nearby hillsides. When night arrived, those villages would glow with hundreds of tiny lamps, visible from miles away across the valleys. No one could hide such light. Neither should those who belong to God hide the hope they had received. Jesus looked from face to face. His voice remained gentle, yet every word carried authority. Neither do people light a lamp and put it under a basket. A few people smiled. The illustration was so simple. No one lights a lamp only to hide it. That would defeat its purpose entirely. Instead, families placed their lamps upon stands where their light could reach everyone inside the house. In the same way, God's truth was never meant to remain hidden within fearful hearts. Faith was not something to be locked away. It was meant to shine through kindness, through honesty, through compassion, through generosity, through quiet acts of love that reflected the very character of God. Then Jesus spoke one of the most memorable statements of his ministry. "Let your light shine before others, that they may see your good works and glorify your Father in heaven." Notice what Jesus did not say. He did not tell them to seek applause. He did not encourage them to chase popularity. He never taught his followers to perform good deeds simply to receive recognition. Instead, every act of love should point beyond themselves. The goal was never personal glory. The goal was always to reveal the goodness of God. The disciples reflected deeply upon his words. Peter wondered if someone as impulsive as he could truly become a light for others. Matthew quietly remembered the years when people had despised him because of his profession as a tax collector. He had once been viewed as a traitor to his own people. Now Jesus was inviting him to become an example of God's grace. John looked at the faces surrounding them. Everywhere he turned, he saw ordinary people. Yet Jesus spoke as though each one possessed the power to transform the world. Perhaps that was exactly what God intended. The breeze carried the distant cries of fishermen working upon the lake below. For a brief moment, Jesus allowed silence to settle once again. The people remained completely still. No one wished to interrupt the sacred moment. Then Jesus addressed a concern already growing among the religious leaders. Some believed he had come to replace the teachings of Moses. Others feared he intended to destroy the ancient traditions of Israel. Knowing their thoughts before they spoke, Jesus said, "Do not think that I have come to abolish the law or the prophets." Several Pharisees looked up with surprise. Jesus continued, "I have not come to abolish them, but to fulfill them." The words carried profound meaning. Every prophecy, every sacrifice offered upon the altar, every command given through Moses, every promise spoken by the prophets, they all pointed toward him. Jesus was not rejecting God's word. He was revealing its complete fulfillment. The people listened with growing amazement. This was unlike anything they had ever heard. The scribes often quoted earlier teachers. Jesus spoke as the author of truth itself. His authority came not from human tradition, but from heaven. Then his voice became more searching. "For I tell you, unless your righteousness surpasses that of the teachers of the law and the Pharisees, you will certainly not enter the kingdom of heaven." A quiet gasp spread across the mountainside. The Pharisees were admired for their strict obedience. Many ordinary people believed no one could ever equal their religious devotion. How then could anyone surpass them? Jesus knew the question forming within every heart. The righteousness of the Pharisees often focused on outward appearance, their robes, their ceremonies, their public prayers, their visible acts of religion. But God desired something far deeper. He desired transformed hearts, a righteousness born not from performance, but from love, not from fear, but from faith, not from appearance, but from genuine obedience. Jesus had not come merely to change behavior. He had come to change hearts. And as the crowd sat beneath the warm Galilean sun, many realized they were hearing a message unlike anything the world had ever known. The kingdom of heaven was not built upon pride or position. It was built upon humility, faith, truth, and a heart fully surrendered to God. Jesus paused once more, allowing his words to settle deep within every soul. But the greatest challenges were still ahead. For next, he would reveal that sin begins not only in our actions, but within our thoughts, our attitudes, and our hearts. And the crowd was about to discover that following God required far more than keeping rules. It required becoming a new creation from the inside out. Hours had passed since Jesus first sat upon the mountainside. The morning had quietly slipped into the afternoon, yet no one seemed aware of the passing time. No one stood to leave. No one spoke above a whisper. The people remained captivated by every word that came from the lips of Jesus. Below them, the waters of the Sea of Galilee sparkled beneath the afternoon sun. Birds glided effortlessly through the sky, and shepherds watched their flocks graze peacefully along the distant hillsides. The world around them seemed calm. But within every heart, something extraordinary was happening. Jesus was not simply teaching people how to live. He was inviting them to become citizens of a kingdom unlike anything they had ever known. Throughout the day, he had challenged everything they thought they understood. He had declared that the humble were truly blessed. He had taught that mercy was stronger than revenge. He had shown that true righteousness begins inside the heart, not merely in outward actions. He had called his followers to become the salt of the earth and the light of the world. He had urged them to trust their heavenly Father instead of being consumed by worry. Now, as the afternoon shadows slowly stretched across the mountainside, Jesus would bring his sermon to its unforgettable conclusion. He looked across the thousands gathered before him. His eyes rested on every face, the rich and the poor, the healthy and the sick, religious leaders, fishermen, mothers, children. Every person was about to hear a choice that would determine not only the direction of their lives, but their eternity. A gentle silence settled over the mountain. Then Jesus spoke. "Do not judge, or you too will be judged." A quiet murmur spread through the crowd. Many immediately thought of the Pharisees. The religious leaders were known for pointing out the failures of others while often ignoring the condition of their own hearts. Jesus continued, "For in the same way you judge others, you will be judged, and with the measure you use, it will be measured to you." The people listened carefully. Jesus was not saying that right and wrong no longer mattered. He was warning against something far more dangerous: a proud heart, a heart that delights in condemning others while refusing to admit its own need for God's mercy. Then Jesus painted a picture so vivid that smiles appeared across the crowd. "Why do you look at the speck of sawdust in your brother's eye and pay no attention to the plank in your own eye?" Laughter rippled through the hillside. The image was almost impossible to imagine. A man struggling to remove a tiny speck from another person's eye, while a massive wooden beam stuck out from his own. Yet beneath the humor was a truth that pierced every heart. How easy it is to notice another person's mistakes. How difficult it is to recognize our own pride, our own impatience, our own jealousy, our own unforgiveness. Jesus' voice remained calm. "First, remove the plank from your own eye. Then you will see clearly to remove the speck from your brother's eye." The lesson was unmistakable. Humility must always come before correction. Compassion must always come before criticism. Only a heart transformed by God's grace can truly help another. For several moments, no one spoke. The only sounds were the gentle rustling of leaves and the distant cries of birds soaring above the Sea of Galilee. Then Jesus' voice softened. His words became an invitation. "Ask, and it will be given to you." Many lifted their heads. Some leaned closer. Others held their breath. "Seek, and you will find." Hope began to stir within hearts that had nearly given up. Then came another promise. "Knock, and the door will be opened to you." Imagine hearing those words for the very first time. Many people believed God was distant. Some thought only priests could approach him. Others feared they were too sinful to be heard. But Jesus revealed something astonishing. The Creator of heaven was inviting ordinary people into a relationship with him. Not once, not only during moments of crisis, but every day. Jesus continued, "For everyone who asks receives, the one who seeks finds, and to the one who knocks, the door will be opened." A father standing near the front of the crowd smiled as Jesus continued with another familiar picture. "Which of you, if your son asks for bread, will give him a stone?" Parents quietly laughed. Every father knew the answer. No loving parent would deceive a hungry child. Jesus asked again, "Or if he asks for a fish, will give him a snake?" Again, the answer was obvious. Then Jesus looked across the mountainside. His eyes reflected both authority and compassion. If you, though you are imperfect, know how to give good gifts to your children, how much more will your Father in heaven give good things to those who ask him? The words settled deeply into every heart. God was not a distant ruler waiting to punish every mistake. He was a loving Father, a Father who listened, a Father who cared, a Father who delighted in providing what his children truly needed. Some listeners quietly wiped away tears. For perhaps the first time in their lives, they realized they were deeply loved by God. Then Jesus offered a teaching so simple that even the youngest child could remember it, yet so profound that it would shape civilizations for generations to come. So in everything, do to others what you would have them do to you. The people quietly repeated his words among themselves. Treat others the way you hope to be treated. Imagine if every family lived this way. Imagine if neighbors chose kindness instead of bitterness. Imagine if forgiveness replaced revenge. Imagine if every act of love reflected the heart of God. The kingdom of heaven was not advanced through violence. It grew through compassion, one person at a time, one act of mercy at a time, one forgiven heart at a time. But then, Jesus' expression became serious once again. The mountain grew silent. The breeze itself seemed to pause. He spoke words that demanded a decision. Enter through the narrow gate. Every eye remained fixed upon him. For wide is the gate, and broad is the road that leads to destruction, and many enter through it. The image was familiar. Wide roads were easy, comfortable, popular, crowded with travelers. They required little effort, little sacrifice, little commitment. But Jesus continued, "Small is the gate, and narrow the road that leads to life, and only a few find it." Following Christ would never be the easiest path. It would require humility, repentance, faith, obedience. It often meant walking against the opinions of the crowd, choosing truth instead of popularity, choosing holiness instead of comfort, choosing God's will above personal desires. The disciples quietly looked at one another. They realized that following Jesus meant far more than admiring his teachings. It meant surrendering their entire lives. Jesus then warned them about another danger: false teachers. Watch out for false prophets. Some people nodded. Many had already encountered teachers who spoke beautiful words while secretly pursuing wealth and power. Jesus continued, "They come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they are ferocious wolves." Not everyone who appears spiritual speaks for God. Appearances can deceive. Titles can deceive. Popularity can deceive. Then Jesus pointed toward the fruit trees scattered across the nearby hills. "By their fruit you will recognize them." Everyone understood. Healthy trees produce healthy fruit. Diseased trees cannot. Likewise, a life transformed by God will eventually produce visible evidence: love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, faithfulness. These are the marks of a heart rooted in God. Finally, Jesus reached the climax of his sermon. His voice became both gentle and deeply urgent. "Not everyone who says to me, 'Lord, Lord,' will enter the kingdom of heaven." A hush fell over the mountainside. Many assumed that simply speaking the right words was enough. But Jesus revealed a deeper truth. Real faith is not merely spoken. It is lived. It is demonstrated through obedience, through trust, through surrender. Then Jesus looked toward the rocky cliffs surrounding the mountain. He pointed to houses built along the hillsides. Everyone leaned forward. They knew one final story was coming. "Everyone who hears these words of mine and puts them into practice is like a wise man who built his house upon the rock. The people imagined the scene. Dark clouds gathered. Rain poured relentlessly. Floodwaters rushed through the valleys. Powerful winds battered the house. Yet it stood firm, not because the storm was weak, but because its foundation was unshakable. Then Jesus continued, "But everyone who hears these words of mine and does not put them into practice is like a foolish man who built his house upon the sand." At first, the house looked just as beautiful. Its walls appeared just as strong. But beneath it, there was no solid foundation. When the storms came, the rain fell, the rivers rose, the winds struck with terrible force, the house collapsed, and everything was lost. Jesus allowed silence to settle over the mountain. Everyone understood. Storms are unavoidable. Pain will come. Loss will come. Disappointment will come. Even death itself will come. The question is not whether storms will arrive. The question is, what foundation are you building your life upon? The mountain remained silent. Some people quietly wept. Others bowed their heads in prayer. Even the teachers of the law struggled to respond. The scriptures tell us that the people were amazed, because Jesus taught them as one who had authority, not merely as another teacher. As the crowd slowly began descending the mountain that evening, they carried more than memories. They carried a decision. Would they continue living according to the changing values of the world, or would they build their lives upon the eternal words of Christ? That same question echoes across every generation. It echoes through history, and today it echoes into our own hearts. Because the words spoken on that Galilean hillside were never meant only for those who first heard them. They were spoken for every one of us.